A number of times now, I've heard Christian content makers say that for studying the scriptures, learning the original languages isn't strictly necessary, and pretty much everything you need to know can be known through translation, with, of course, some consideration of debates and all that stuff. And this is, with respect to devotional study, this is more or less true, not entirely, but true. But with respect to academic study, I am flatly opposed to this idea. I believe that if you wish to study the scriptures in their depth to a serious level, you must learn the biblical languages. No two ways about it. The first thing to consider is issues of principle. So, drawing everything back, even logically prior to this subject, what is the very goal of academic study? Fundamentally, it is to approach these objects of study for yourself and learn for yourself. Now, with that in mind, translations are not, in the strictest sense of the word, I don't want to be too technical with this, but in the strictest sense, translations are not the original text. You are ultimately beholden to the decisions of other translators, other academics. And this isn't bad per se, but your ability to check them is limited if you do not know the language, and if you are, if you just do not know the language and you're not approaching it accordingly. You're relying on certain translations, even multiple translations. The point of academic study fundamentally is not, strictly speaking, just looking at what other academics do. Yes, that is very important to academic study, but ultimately it is looking at the primary sources themselves and coming to conclusions with the aid of the work of other academics. Absolutely granted. But nonetheless, studying scripture fundamentally means studying what the authors wrote. And in the literal sense, they wrote Hebrew in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, not in English. So studying scripture in the truest sense of the word means studying those original language texts. And I don't want to be overly reductionist with it. A translation is still that text in a basic and commonsensical sense. But the fullest sense of the text means that original language composition. Now, arguably a more pressing thing to appeal to is the very practice itself, the very on-the-ground nature, and not really the abstracts of what is the truest sense of the text and all that, even though it is important. That's why I actually included it in this video in the first place. But countless scriptural debates hinge on good translation and what specific words mean. And it is impossible to be adequately firm in your study of your deep study of the scriptures without addressing those debates and frankly coming to a side, which requires knowledge of the language to be done with any degree of competence. And there's many examples of specific words upon which very serious doctrines hinge, or historical understandings of the scriptures. But to just give three examples, we have the word dikaio, or I justify. Does it mean to simply declare righteous or to actually make someone or something righteous? What is the function of the omicron omega stem? Is it factative? Can it be declarative? How is it used? The word used in contemporary documents or in the Septuagint text of the Old Testament? How is it used in legal text? And how is it used in certain word forms? This word is central to debates on justification, whether justification is strictly declarative or if it does actually include internal change of the person. This is core to the divide between the Protestant denominations and the non-Protestant, quote-unquote, apostolic denominations. And so if you can't come to a clear conclusion of that, if you can't study that, then you are quite simply beholden to others, and you're not going to be able to get into the deepest sense of the word without coming to that study yourself. Another example would be the word apthenteo, or to exercise authority. But does it mean to exercise authority, or does it mean to assume authority, or to domineer, or something else? And this is the word Paul uses in 1 Timothy 2:12, when, most commonly translated, he says, "But I am not permitting a woman to teach, nor to exercise authority over a man. She must remain silent." So this word is in many respects, quite central to how we understand the gender roles in the church. This passage isn't the only one upon which the doctrine hinges, but the precise nuances of Paul's view and even some, really significant facets of it really depend on how we translate this word. Again, doesn't mean to simply exercise authority, doesn't mean to assume authority, doesn't mean to domineer or something else. How does the syntax in 1 Timothy 2:12 and the surrounding passages affect its meaning? Does the etymology of the word affect its meaning? How is the word used in near contemporary documents? Does it have a primarily positive, negative, or neutral meaning? And all of this over one word that is integral to the debate on women in pastoral roles. And a final example would be the word monogenes. Does it mean only begotten or unique? What meaning best explains its historical use in ancient documents? And this word is quite integral to our understanding of Christ's sonship and begetting, quote unquote. And those are just three examples off the top of my head from the Greek New Testament alone. That doesn't even include the Hebrew and Aramaic Old Testament, of which there are many debates, especially given the paucity of evidence for those languages is much slimmer compared to Greek. So it is quite simply impossible to make a good informed decision on these debates, and then by extension a fully informed decision on the specific texts that they affect, without having a competence in the languages in which they take place. Now, with my conclusion, let me begin with what I am not saying. One of the rare times where I will give qualifications of my view, though you can expect it to happen less and less in the future, since I believe it's a waste of time. Now, what I'm not saying is that you can't do... I'm not saying, rather, that you can't do good study without knowing the languages, or that the scholars who make the translations are so hopelessly unreliable and biased that you're never going to come to a true understanding of the vast majority of the text and the essentials of the faith without coming into the original language. That is not what I'm saying. Everything you need to learn of your salvation is right there in many competent English translations of the scriptures, and I can vouch for that, having studied the languages myself, especially on the very key topics of, for example, justification, the nature of Christ, so on and so forth. You do not need it for your salvation. You're going to be fine with it. You're all good. This is specifically aimed at those who wish to go into academic depth with the Holy Scriptures. And with that, I hope that if you are intending to get into that academic depth of scriptural study, that you have been convinced to learn the biblical languages if you weren't convinced before or simply haven't thought about it. And it's especially because my own content hinges on this learning that I have done. I could not have done half of what I do in my content, in my biblical content, even my non-biblical historical content, without the knowledge of languages that I do have. Now, you might be thinking, how do I get started with all this? Well, that'll be for another video where I'll recommend good resources and methods for learning the biblical languages and really for languages in general. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do consider liking this video, sharing it with people you think may benefit from it, subscribing to my channel and to my alternate video channels as well, and following me on my various social media such as Facebook, Twitter, but especially Gab given the era of censorship that we live in, and should I get nuked from these platforms, which I believe is not an if but a when, that will be my new center of operations. And if you believe in my mission, please do consider becoming a patron or donating to my PayPal. For patrons in particular, there is a number of very, very nice bonuses increasing as the tiers go up, so do consider that. And you can join my Discord channel, the Theocrat Lounge, for free. Link down below for everything you need. God bless.